is the Mission Command Briefing. This is workshop number 1. We have 2 workshops. The first one, this one's going to be tailored more towards the structure of the brief. And then the next one, we'll talk about briefing instructions in regards to virtual platforms, slideology, and all that overall briefing style and mechanics. If you are viewing telephonically, or you're listening in telephonically, excuse me, hopefully you have the slides pulled from Blackboard in front of you and follow along with me. I'll go ahead and transition. I'll let you guys know. I'll say next slide, and I'll make sure that we're all on the same course. There's no issues or lag time, so you guys will be tracking what you need to track. So just moving on, transitioning to the next slide. Right now, we're going over the working agenda. So to the right, I have the rubric, just to let you know that's the agenda of or the structure of your brief. Okay. So what we're asking is 15 to 18 minutes, and you need to strategize how much you're going to spend talking about each point by the points that they are allowed. Okay. So you got your introduction. That's 20%. If you look at the rubric, you'll be able to get a better picture of it. I know it's a little smaller, but the introduction is 20%. Followed by the development or articulation of your mission command principles. That's 40%, and 10% is your conclusion. So that's a total of 70%. That's what we're talking about right now. Next workshop, we're going to go over the remaining 30%, which is the overall briefing style and mechanics of what the SGLs are expecting and what they're looking for. Okay, so structure of this workshop, we're going to hit on who your audience is and what to expect. Then we'll get into the flow of your attention getters, introduction, your background of commander battle, and then your thesis point. From there, we're going to go into what I call the meal analysis, which is the way that you are going to articulate your mission command principles. And we'll wrap it up with what your conclusion should look like. Okay. If you have any questions, by the way, just a side note, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Forgive me if I take some time to get to them, because I'm more of I got tunnel vision sometimes when I'm up here. But I will get to you, and I'll open up the floor for questions at the end as well, and I'll make sure that I get to you. Okay. And if I skip you, just you can come on that at equal time to interrupt me, and then we'll what you got from there. Also, I asked just go ahead and put your microphones on mute, just to prevent any feedback, and so we don't distract the audience. Okay, moving on. Next slide. The next slide should look something like this. It should say audience. Okay, so your audience is going to be any member of staff, whether it be an SGL, a team lead, take a brief from the department, our department chairman. So it doesn't matter, because we all, we're all going to go by one standard thing, and that's the rubric. Okay, so just know that may be your audience. It'll be coordinated ahead of time. You'll have an opportunity to speak with them ahead of time as far as expectations as well. Okay. Most of your SGLs are going to have general knowledge of the battle. We've heard these briefs over and over and over. So even though we've mixed some of these up, we do have a list of who's going to be briefing what, and from there, some of us do our research. So just let you know, it's not a threat to try to trip you up or hang you up on anything. None of us are walking encyclopedias. However, if you're there and you have some, if you think you're going to, for lack of better words, just, make some stuff up, that's probably not going to be the best way. Okay, do your homework, do your analysis. I don't anticipate anybody doing that, but for those who have an inkling that could happen, just err on the side of caution, and you don't want to do that. Okay. Again, it's rubric focused. Okay, so it's going to be you versus the SGL, but it's really you versus the rubric. Follow the rubric, trust the rubric, follow the process, and you will be fine. Okay, you're accountable for anything else that's not on the rubric. Just and tell you what could have made your brief stronger. All right, but as long as you follow that rubric and follow it to a T, you will be fine. Okay. Speaking of the rubric, there's a section on there that requires the SGLs or whoever the recipient of the brief It's going to require us to ask questions because we have to see how well they respond to questions. So most of us, at least if you get me, the but some of us may interject tactically and ask a question on spot. Don't get shaken up. Just respond and keep moving. This brief, it can be awkward. It is in a one-on-one setting, but obviously this is a virtual setting, so it wouldn't be as bad as if we were in person and it's a big classroom and you're taking a one-on-one brief. But it is, it is one-on-one. And speaking of the grader, your grader will be taking several briefs in that day. Okay, so you want to start strong and you want to grab our attention. And the better that you can grab our attention, honestly, speaking from personal experiences, they probably won't be looking at the rubric as much to ding off points. If you can keep my attention throughout the brief and I'm following along what you're saying, trust and believe you are in better position to get a grade that you're going to deem as optimal. But if you're pretty choppy and I'm having a hard time following along and I'm looking dead at the rubric for every single thing and I'm not interested, if I appear uninterested, it probably is because I am. And from there, I'm going to be looking or evaluating you and look for what you're missing. So the key is you want to have such a flow, a smooth flow to where your briefing style and mechanics is taking over the room, and the SGL is focused on you and not the rubric. That's the overall objective. Okay. And then lastly, like I've hit on before, it is in a virtual setting. So just be prepared. At least for me, not necessarily too focused on what you look like in regards to your uniform and all that stuff, but you still want to have a professional appearance. You want to make sure you have a professional background, nothing too crazy hanging up in the air or anything like that. Of course, you got your unit stuff. I don't know if you want to have some type of background, you can have it if it's going to enhance your brief, but you don't want to have anything that's too distracting from your brief. In addition to that, you want to make sure that all your platforms, whatever you're briefing on, you know what you're doing, you know how to navigate through, not flipping through, you're not losing connectivity, and your slides are able to kind of work through itself. And if your attention getters a video or something like that, it still works. So you want to rehearse that stuff because this is a different condition that's based on us while we're taking this brief, and it can take away from your brief if we're stumbling, fumbling through videos. If we can't hear each other, your mic's not working, all that stuff. So the better off you can be prepared. First off, it's going to allow you to gain confidence. Second off, it's going to allow for the instructor to already believe in you when your stuff is working. Just being honest with you. So moving on, next slide. Should be seeing something that says attention. Okay, so the first step in the brief, as soon as you walk in, as soon as the brief starts, you should have an attention getter. Okay, that is a requirement on the rubric. I asked the question, does this get your attention, this picture? And I'll be honest with you, it gets about 30% done, and I'm just letting you know, a picture is we say it's worth 1,000 words, but you want to have something a little bit stronger than a picture. If you have a quote, we've seen monologues, we've seen different videos that can really pull things together. I had somebody sing opera before. I've had it all, and I would say the more that I'm entertained by it, or the more I can actually feel it, and the more it sets the scene, the better off you're going to start strong. The stronger you're going to start off with your brief, and the better mood I am to really and receive your brief, which is going to ultimately set you up for success in regards to your grade. So, don't forget about this step. I know it may seem menial, but it really does set the tone. And even if you come up there and just make a strong, bold statement, and the way you start off with it, if it's really impactful, we can buy that as well. So moving forward, I'm on the next slide. It's a little cheat sheet for your attention getter. Starting off, the clock is going to start right when you start your attention getter, or right when you start talking. So that's when the clock starts. Again, this is a 15 to 18-minute brief, and anything under 15 minutes, you will be you'll lose points on, and anything over 15 minutes, anything over 18 minutes, excuse me, 18 minutes, you will you'll miss out on those points. It won't be counted. Some SGLs will just stop you. Some will let you continue on, but you still won't get credit for what you briefed over 18 minutes. So time management is going to be huge. The clock is going to start when you start your attention getter. Your attention getter is the most important minute of the brief, and my highlight minute because it's all you really want to spend at most on it. But it's going to set the tone for your brief. Rules of engagement for attention getter. Again, if you have a video, the maximum length it can only be 1 minute. Things that's been used in the past, quotes, monologues, handouts, and props. Those are good things. Other things that have been used in the past that weren't so good were bad costumes. Things that some professional stuff on it. Somebody thought that it'd be a good idea to view some stuff that wasn't necessarily appropriate and was deemed unprofessional, and they lost points. Another point I want to hit on with videos is if your video does not work, then you must continue on. So my recommendation to you is if you have a video, you want to have a backup plan as well. You want to make sure that your video works, of course, but if you can't get it to work, then you better have something else in the queue so you don't lose those points and you don't lose the momentum of your brief. Okay, I've had somebody have a video, it not work, and then have another backup plan, and I was thoroughly impressed with the way they prepared themselves. So next, again, I said this before, but rehearse your platform. We're all going to be on different platforms. I think the department will do an agreement on what platforms we're going to use, or it's going to be SGL dependent, whatever have you. You guys are going to know ahead of time. Whatever platform that is, you need to make sure that you understand that platform to a T, okay? And that's not just for this brief, but that's for the remainder of the course, because I know you guys, are competitions than everybody else, but hey, it is what it is, and it's the operating environment in which you need to perform. And so it is what it is. Be prepared and be rehearsed. Next, don't be afraid to get out there. Again, I heard somebody really bring to the table, and it was I was taken aback by what they chose to do, but honestly, I got 4 points, and it really set the tone for the group, and it was very good. Excuse me, I got a hot mic. Somebody just check the mic, make sure. Lastly, you want to tie in relevance. It's going to be enough. The rest of the brief. It's obsolete. It's yes to your graph. Points. Okay, I got the script right here. If you go by the classification of the brief, those points are going to be taken off from you. Again, this is just part of this. Whoever your name is, I'll be given an unclassified information brief on insert your commander's performance during the insert battle. The purpose of this brief is to evaluate either successful or unsuccessful, whichever one throughout your research that you deem that you want to evaluate, execution of missing command principles in accordance with ADP 6. So very simple. Okay, 30 seconds, get in, get out. Time management is key. Okay, another thing, and we're getting out. We got 5 minutes essentially to get to our thesis points, because that's the majority of our brief. Okay, spend 1 minute on the attention getter. We spent 30 seconds on the introduction. Now we're going to spend 1 minute on the background of the commander. Okay, you're going to keep the information relevant. I don't care if your commander, if your commander owned a pizza parlor or something like that. I don't care about that. I only care about relevant information. Obviously, and their, the parents or their upbringing had an impact of their leadership style. That's something you could tie in. if they went to some type of military school or anything like that, you're going to tie in the past life experiences and past military experiences, and then you're going to transition right into the battle. You spend about 1 minute on this, cover what you need to cover, and again, keep your information relevant. That's the key takeaway from this. Transitioning to the next slide. So now we're going to talk about the battle, son. Okay, this is where some people fall in that trap or rabbit hole of thinking that they're doing a book report on a battle, and I've seen people fail miserably. And yes, probably gotten a 9 at that, but this is one thing people don't do well at, because they spend more time talking about the battle and not the time as in the mission command principles. And that's what we're asking you to do. 2 minutes max. Okay, rehearse it. You spend 2 minutes max. All right, you're going to talk about the big picture significance of the battle, what led up to the battle, the outcomes of the battle. You're going to talk about all that in this section. Have a map. If you can have a map, that's better than not having a map, honestly. That's going to be able to allow you to provide a clear depiction of what was going on in the battle. You throw some decisive actions verbiage in there. You'll have a class on operational doctrine and foundation and offense, defense, and all those different military tactics. You'll have that conversation, or you'll have that class with your SGLs or our Log C3 staff to know what those things are. Okay, but you need to speak that language of unified land operations or decisive action or whatever you want to call it, large-scale combat operation. You need to speak that language into this battle code that you really took the time to analyze and synthesize with the material. Okay. Lastly, you're going to use this to transition to your thesis. Okay, transitions are key and important throughout the whole entire brief. It should flow naturally. Keep the attention on you and not the rubric. Key takeaways from this: big picture significance, have a map, and be able to talk through unified land operations. Okay, what was the plan? All right, the plan was to conduct an envelopment, or double envelopment or flank troops in order to, allow your adversary to retreat or cut off supply lines, whatever it may be. Okay, you got to be able to discuss the plan in respect to whatever the tactical mission tasks were outlined by by unified land operations. So transitioning to the next slide. Again, this is your thesis, 30 seconds. All right, so we done the math. We got 30 seconds on attention getter. 1 minute on attention getter, 1 minute on the battle. That's like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Now 2 minutes on the battle. Now we're at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. 30 seconds on your rubric. Okay, that's 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, you should be getting right to your mission command paper. So 30 seconds on your rubric. Your thesis should clearly outline the evaluation of your 4 or 7 mission command principles. Write your paper first. And whatever thesis that you write for your paper, hopefully your paper is good, but you can't mess up the thesis. You should essentially copy and paste and read your thesis, not necessarily read it, but articulate your thesis, and that's going to allow you to grab the points. Again, this is what you're telling me your brief is about. You're getting ready to tell me what the mission command principles that you evaluated are. Simple put, 30 seconds, that's it. Now, transition to the next slide. We are getting into our analysis of our mission command principles. Okay. Now, 2 minutes per is what I recommend. Is your 8 minutes total. So it should take you 8 minutes to articulate all 4 of your mission command principles. Okay. So I got the meal format to give you a good timeline to or a good structure to go off of while you're analyzing your principles. So your main point. Okay. It sounds exactly what it is. It's what is supporting your thesis. Okay, General Hooker failed to exercise this initiative during the Battle of Chancellorsville. Okay, that's it. That's your main point for your thesis. That's one of them right there. Now you got to bring some friends to the fight. Okay, you got to have evidence to support your main point. If you just telling me, you're giving me your main point, you're giving me all this fluff behind it, how do I know this is true? Prove it. Okay. You don't go to a fight by yourself. You got to bring your friends with you, and that's your evidence. I recommend at least 2 examples per main point. And if you can have empirical evidence, the more we can actually put data to it, or dates, or quotes, or something, the better your evidence is going to be. Okay, so give me some numbers. Then from that, give me the evidence. You're going to analyze what you just said. You got to tell me what was the significance behind your evidence and how it transitioned to your main point. Okay, you got to talk about the income, the outcome of the battle or the impact of the battle from what the evidence rendered. Now, the tricky part, this is on the rubric as well. You got to give us some contrast, okay? You got to look at your analysis from 360 degrees. If you only tell me that, General Hooker failed to exercise discipline initiative, and you only give me examples of how they did that, you only did 180 on the analysis. You got to offer alternative perspectives. What are other people saying? Is there anybody that disagrees? Is there any evidence out there that shows that General Hooker may have exercised discipline initiative? You got to look at it from that angle too. And the way you present counter evidence is it could be, you can talk about how the numbers don't completely reflect the poor leadership or the leadership of them, but it ultimately resulted in, the failure of the adversary or the success of the adversary. You can do that. You can pull out some doctrine from ADP 6.0 and say, hey, I understand that we're saying that, discipline initiative really the case in regards to this battle. However, and then you got to tie it back into how ultimately your point is still your point. So you got to have some alternative perspective or counter evidence to show that you've done a 360 analysis. You can't always just have a good news story in the real world. You always got to there's always going to be challenges. You got to be able to present those challenges or those those bits of counter evidence or alternative perspective, and that's what we're asking you to do as well. Again, if you can tie in some verbiage from ADP 6.0 into your analysis as well, that is also a great strategy to do. And then lastly, the L, you got to link the transitions here. It's a smooth transition. So strategically place your mission command principles in a way that it flows throughout the entire brief. All right, so start with the conclusion of your main point and then transition right to the next mission command principle. You do this 4 times, you rinse and repeat, it's going to give you a total of 8 minutes, okay? If you do this right, if you do what I'm telling you to do, I'm guarantee you that you're going to get at least a 92 or above if you do this stuff right. If that's not the truth, I promise you to give you your hour that it took for these mission command briefing workshops. How about that? Okay, next slide. Going into the conclusion, the mission command principles, the meal analysis is going to take 8 minutes and 5 minutes for your introduction. That's 13 minutes. Now, those 3 minutes of actually wrapping everything up is going to take 3 minutes. We're sitting at 16 minutes. We got a 16-minute planning timeline. As are really giving you a brief for your grade, and you've rehearsed over and over and over again. That's what you wanted. That's the time you want to rehearse at, because you're probably going to finish a minute shorter than what you rehearsed at. Because your blood is going to be flowing and it's going to come out naturally rehearsed, and it's going to speed up the timeline a little bit, and that's going to put you at 15 minutes, and that's okay. Or again, if you start stumbling, fumbling, or whatever the case may be, you give your time some leeway to recover as well, and I think that's the best timeline, 16 minutes. Right when you get to your conclusion, you're going to restate your thesis, verbatim. You're going to address your points again. You're going to reel us back into the overall point that you're making, or the overall position that you're standing on within your brief. So you want to wrap us back into that, provide an overall analysis, and tell us, the outcome of the battle. Again, or if you state it again, you're going to tell us the significance of the battle and the impact that it had on the war or a country or whatever the case may be. You're going to give us that overall analysis. Then you're going to go right into lessons learned, bigger picture significance in respect to what future commanders could use or take away from this battle. And then after that, you might by asking, are there any questions? And that's when the timeline is going to stop. That's when the clock is going to stop for the STL. Once you ask, are there any questions? So the key takeaways from this brief: 16-minute planning timeline. Trust the rubric. I recommend strategically placing your brief or ordering your slides in respect to how the rubric is laid out. Pick your examples before your principles. Okay, so while you're doing your research, you're just researching the battle and the commander. That's what you're researching. From there, about your research, you're thinking of things, or you're pulling out evidence that you feel is going to be good to make a point off of. Once you pull out all your evidence and examples from your research, then you can go ahead and structure your principles around that, and that's going to make your examples that much stronger and improve your point, because you've already picked those examples, or you picked your principles. If you pick your principles first and then try to go find examples, now you're going to be scratching your head. Also, too, with your principles, and I told my class, some key nuggets, and some of those principles they seem identical, even though by ADP 6.0 they did a great job of articulating and separating what means what. But commander's intent and use submission orders can go back and forth. I wouldn't recommend, if I picked commander's intent as one of the four of my mission principles, the rest of my mission command principles aren't going to be use submission orders, because it's going to be hard to have clear, defined examples, because they can be so similar. So I would err on the caution in regards to choosing your principles as well. Another thing is, work on your paper first. Write it first. Your paper is your brief. Okay, the more effort that you spend in your paper, the easier it is going to be to work on your brief, and you're going to catch all those things that don't make sense while you're proofreading your paper. So do your paper. And again, like I said, familiarize yourself with the briefing platform. Again, it's different. You got people on Zoom, DCS Connect, Microsoft Teams, whatever the case may be. Just familiarize yourself with that, so you're not stumbling and fumbling. And then the next workshop, we'll go over overall briefing style and mechanics, which is the other 30% of the rubric. It will be 13 May. Okay, 13 May. So at this time, I will go ahead and open the floor for any questions. I see we got some stuff typed up into the comments. Let's talk about it. The first question I got Lieutenant Baker. What if there are multiple commanders? We are picking one commander and one commander only. Okay, you picking one commander throughout from the battle, and the list should be out. Again, there might be a battle that has two different commanders. Most of the time, they're on opposing sides, and you can choose either one of those commanders. If there's the Battle of Chancellorsville, you can talk about General Lee's performance, or you can talk about General Hooker's performance. You're not going to do both. You're only going to pick one commander. Lieutenant Baker, does that answer?
Yes, sir.
Nobody? Okay, well, I'll stick around for those who might not want to ask a question in front of the entire forum. I'll stick around for the next 10 minutes or so. If you guys don't have anything, I'm good to go. Enjoy your day. Start working on your papers, doing your research. I know you got argument papers. Stay on top of this stuff, because it can really pile up, and don't let it pile up, especially in this forum where we're doing virtual learning. So without being, you guys can go ahead and fall off. I'll stick around for the next 10 minutes for any that has anything.